Hécate, uma deusa pré-cristã, pré-olímpica e pré-helênica, onde tem cultuadores pelo mundo todo. Alguns morrem de medo do seu poder e atuação, e outros se arriscam a dizer que são filhos dessa deusa tão poderosa. No vídeo de hoje, você vai conhecer um pouquinho melhor como essa deusa tocou o coração de pessoas pelo mundo todo. E também vai conhecer um pouquinho mais de projetos e vivências incríveis de cultuadores de Hecate pelo mundo todo. Então assiste esse vídeo até o final. E aí, bruxarada, tudo bem com vocês? Eu sou Cedrec Nightingale e aqui no canal a gente fala sobre magia e espiritualidade direto com um bruxo de verdade, então que o sol possa iluminar o nosso encontro. Nesse vídeo eu trago para vocês pessoas, cultuadores de Hecate, que estão localizados no mundo inteiro, mantendo a tocha da deusa acesa, trazendo conhecimento para o mundo, cada um com o seu cada qual, cada um com projetos incríveis para falar para vocês um pouquinho mais de como é ter essa deusa tão poderosa na realidade deles e como, de alguma maneira, eles podem contribuir com a comunidade pagã mundial falando e trazendo o poder dessa deusa para a realidade. Sem contar que ao final desse vídeo a gente também tem a participação de Desta, uma escritora incrível, sacerdotisa wiccaniana, sacerdotisa de Hecate, criadora do Covenant of Hecate, uma comunidade mundial de cultuadores da deusa Hecate. E eu, posso dizer que talvez hoje em dia a grande fonte de inspiração para os cultuadores de Hecate no mundo todo. Hecate é uma deusa pré-cristã, pré-olímpica e pré-helênica. Ela é um verdadeiro quebra-cabeças para os cultuadores. E ainda assim, a gente pode encontrar devotos dela pelo mundo todo. Hecate não tem um mito central, o que torna ainda mais incrível como ela sobreviveu durante todo este tempo. O mais interessante nesse percurso de contato com outros praticantes ao longo do mundo com relação a essa deusa é que cada um teve a sua maneira de ser tocado, de modo tão profundo e intenso que eles se sentiram na obrigação, no prazer, no amor de trazer para a realidade ainda mais informação a respeito desta deusa. É muito interessante porque as pessoas, principalmente aqui no Brasil, têm um costume de se dizerem filhos, de uma divindade. Embora eu particularmente ache isso um pouco problemático, afinal de contas a gente não tem um DNA divino, um teste de DNA divino, e isso se baseia única e exclusivamente na vivência pessoal de cada um. Eu gosto de dizer que, na verdade, nós somos peregrinos dessa deusa. E justamente pelo fato de sermos peregrinos, a gente não morre. E ela não morre, porque ela se encontra junto a nós, passada de tempo em tempo, e permanece viva justamente por isso, pelos corações aos quais ela tocou. Nesse vídeo eu trago para vocês pessoas incríveis, com projetos incríveis, histórias lindas, que estão em vários lugares deste nosso planeta. E eu espero que vocês gostem de conhecer essas pessoas e esses projetos e que sejam também mais pontos de referência para suas práticas pessoais.
Olá, meu nome é Márcia, eu sou uma bruxa hecatina, sacerdotisa e devota de Hecate. Então, primeiramente, eu queria agradecer ao Cedrec a esse convite desse vídeo, Super legal a ideia de ver a visão de várias pessoas. E começando respondendo como eu cheguei até a Hecate. Na verdade, eu diria que a deusa chegou até mim, porque eu comecei na bruxaria bem cedo, com uns 13 anos de idade. E aí eu tinha ouvido falar de Hecate nos meus estudos, tudo, mas era uma visão muito superficial, que Hecate era ligada com os mortos, com a necromancia, e que era a deusa das bruxas, e era isso, mais ou menos o que eu tinha de informação sobre ela. E aí eu não senti de trabalhar com ela naquela época. E aí muitos anos se passaram, só em 2017, e daí que eu digo então que Hecate chegou até mim, Eu não tinha ainda conhecimento aprofundado sobre ela, e aí eu tive esse chamado da deusa e martelando o nome dela na minha cabeça o tempo todo, e várias sincronicidades que foram acontecendo, até que eu falei, bom, vou prestar atenção e buscar sobre Hecate. E aí sim que eu realmente conheci a deusa, não só na parte teórica, mas também nas minhas experiências. E aí depois disso eu não parei mais. Então, depois de um tempo eu acabei revirando mesmo a minha prática, me tornando uma bruxa hecatina, mudou totalmente a minha prática. E é isso, basicamente, resumindo, foi essa história que eu comecei com ela. Bom, meu trabalho com Hecate na internet, publicamente, começou com um site, né? Na verdade, minha missão falar sobre Hecate sempre foi trazer as informações em português sobre a deusa, porque a gente não tinha tanta informação, hoje tem bem mais, né? Então eu comecei com um site, que é o cavernasdehecate.com, que seria um templo liminal à deusa. Depois, logo em seguida, eu comecei com o podcast Caverna de Hécate, que existe até hoje, que foi o que realmente deu mais visibilidade para o meu trabalho. Na verdade, eu falei, vai meia dúzia de pessoas ouvir o podcast. E na verdade não, teve um acolhimento muito bom das pessoas, né, online. E foi assim, então, que meu trabalho acabou tendo mais visibilidade, crescendo. E no meio disso tudo também eu tinha o Instagram, que eu tenho até hoje. E lá eu já falava bastante sobre Hecate, hoje mais ainda, mas também falo da minha prática, no geral, né, na bruxaria. E também em agosto do ano passado, em 2020, eu publiquei o livro Bruxaria Hecatina, O Caminho da Bruxa com a Deusa Hecate. Então nesse livro eu trago tanto a parte teórica sobre a deusa e também a parte prática de como é trabalhar com a deusa na bruxaria. E esse ano, em 2021, vai sair o segundo livro em novembro, que é As Faces de Hecate, então dando continuidade, assim, aprofundando, né, toda essa teoria que eu trouxe no primeiro livro. Então basicamente é isso, também tem a comunidade, enfim, tem vários projetos acontecendo aí ao mesmo tempo, dentro também do meu sacerdócio. E aí, então, uma dica que eu daria para quem está começando e tem interesse em trabalhar com Hecate, então tem esse caminho mesmo. Às vezes a deusa vai até a pessoa e às vezes a pessoa vai até ela. Não tem melhor ou pior, é simplesmente a forma que acontece. Mas isso vale também para todas as divindades, que a primeira coisa é você entender então sobre aquela divindade. Entender a história dela, ir lá nos textos antigos, entender, né, desde os primeiros escritos que a gente tem, onde que ela era cultuada, conhecer a cultura desse local, como que era, né, os ritos antes e como que são hoje. Realmente conhecer, saber onde que você está pisando. Porque às vezes o trabalho com aquela determinada divindade, né, no caso a gente está falando com Hecate, não é para qualquer pessoa, não é para todo mundo. Às vezes a pessoa tem uma atração inicial, mas depois ela vai conhecer melhor e acaba não sendo para ela, o que está tudo bem também. Então por isso que entender, antes de começar, entender quem é aquela divindade de verdade. Até envolve uma questão de respeito pela divindade, de você entender quem é ela antes de sair fazendo as coisas, né? Então primeira dica. E a segunda é realmente, depois que você tiver essa base, começar de forma bem simples. O simples é sempre o melhor, assim, não adianta a gente querer elaborar. E às vezes a gente vê aqueles altares de pessoas que cultuam Hecate, aquele altar enorme, lindo, coisa cheia de estátua. Mas você tem que pensar que a pessoa já trabalha com Hecate faz anos. Então, eu mesma comecei bem simples, eu nem tenho foto dos meus primeiros altares, porque era só realmente uma vela e um incenso. E aí eu imprimi uma imagem, uma ilustração que eu gostei, que me identifiquei, da internet, e foi isso. Então você não precisa fazer nada muito elaborado, começa simples e realmente trabalhando a sua relação com a deusa, que é o mais importante do que a parte material, né? Então você vai ali nesse altar bem simples todo dia, acende a vela, conversa com a deusa, faz orações a ela. Enquanto isso você vai aprendendo mais e vai indo aos poucos, não precisa ter pressa de trabalhar, as coisas vão acontecer todas no seu tempo. Então é isso, muito obrigada mais uma vez e beijinho para vocês.
Hello, I'm Cristina Moretti and I'm making this video as a request for some very good friends in Brazil who asked me to make this little presentation about my path with Hecate, the goddess of crossroads and the afterlife, amongst other things. I'm 30 years old and I have been a devotee of Hecate for almost 6 years. I'm a torchbearer and a key bearer for the Covenant of Hecate, which is an international company, I would say, a covenant, for devotees of the goddess Hecate from across the world. I'm very happy to be participating in this videocast. For the people in Brazil, I hope everyone is safe in these trying times and everyone is happy. My good friends from the Covenant who do this amazing job in Brazil for all the pagans there have asked me to say a few things about a project that I have made for everyone. It's called Following Her Torches and it's a Google map that is accessible to everyone around the world in their own language. about where you can find Hecate in museums, galleries, exhibitions, and archaeological sites that have to do with her. It has more than 130 points on the map. Most of them are in Europe, as you can imagine, and especially the Mediterranean basin. But you can also find her in Asia, in the United States, in some great museums there, and in Northern Africa. What made me make this project was actually my love for her, because I'm in Athens, I'm Greek, and I became a devotee of Hecate at 24, 25, I'm not exactly sure. But what I realized soon after becoming a devotee of a Greek goddess while being Greek in Greek soil was that I'm in a state of privilege. I live in Athens, I can go to many museums across the city, and I can find her easily on my own. But I realized that this is not something that other people can actually do. So I decided to make this. I have traveled to many places to find her, to take photos of her, statues, reliefs again, and motifs. I have tried hard to find artifacts that have to do with her in storages of museums and galleries, in places that are out of display. In some cases it went well, in some cases it didn't, but I tried very hard and everything has been catalogued. My next steps for this project is to actually make a book about where you can find and what you see in each point of it, because right now you can just click on the points and once you're there you can find her in the museum or the gallery that has the address of the point. I hope that this project will help a lot of people, because it's very easy for me to find her in my country, my city, my language, but this doesn't happen for other people. So this is why I did it. My main motivation to follow Hecate was actually my love for her. It was a very strong call that I felt. I was always a polytheist. I was actually raised an Orthodox Christian, which is a very strict kind of Christianity, I would say. It's very dogmatic. But in my home, in my house, we were very open-minded. And my father is an atheist. My stepmother is a Christian who is mostly afraid of the religion rather than actual devotee. My mother doesn't have a religion, but she believes in upper powers. And my stepfather is a Muslim. So we had all this multicultural and multi-religional background that helped me a lot to open my horizons and see beyond what society dictates or what other people dictates or what school dictates in the case of Greece. So I became a polytheist when I was a teenager, and a few years later, after being a devotee of the Morrigan, a Celtic goddess, I felt a very strong call towards Hecate, which was something I couldn't simply deny, because it was not just a call, it was a scream. So I had to follow. Ever since, I have been a devotee of her, and slowly I became something that I would like to call myself, a priestess, because I am devoted to her and I follow the circles that have to do with her celebrations, the moons, and I have been mostly doing worshipping work with her rather than actual witchcraft or other branches of magical work that people might be doing. Sorry for the little stress. It's the first time that I'm talking for such a big audience as the pagans of Brazil. My dear friend Francini asked me to tell you about my motivation, about my project, and she also asked me to give a few tips about how people could actually worship the goddess and where to find her and how to connect with her and how to learn about her. As a previous devotee of the Morrigan, I totally understand that some of you might be finding it a little hard to worship a goddess in periods of times that have nothing to do with the climate around you. You're in the southern hemisphere, and I understand that the changes of the circles are completely different, but I believe that this is something minor when you actually love a goddess and when a goddess speaks to you and is calling for you. My main advice would be to actually learn historically about Hecate, so you can understand her, first of all, in an objective way, and then to make your own connections and make your own attributions in your personal path with her. I think it's really important for you and for all of us to be able to understand why Hecate is like this, why she's holding snakes, why she's holding torches, the whip, keys, so many different things, and why she's so adaptable through the ancient and the modern times. I think this is really important. So I understand that she has so many different aspects that call to people, and I understand that sometimes we might be focusing on one aspect and not others. This is human nature, I guess. But my advice would be for you, for all of you, and for me, myself, every day, to actually search and research and learn actual facts, historical facts, so you can understand how her ancient worship was like, and from there to make your own connections, because certainly the personal paths are the most important, because it's what make us move on in life. But I think they also need a solid foundation. So research, search, intention, and then continuation of what you're doing in your worship are my main advices. Thank you very much for watching this. I hope you'll enjoy it in your own language, because Francine told me she's going to translate this little video. I hope it will be something helpful to many people. I hope it will be something useful to even more. And you can always check the Covenant of Hecate is a place you can find online, and you can find actual right information for a start there. And from there on, good luck with your path, good luck with everything. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you. Bye from Greece.
Hello and welcome to the Covenant of Hecate, Sanctuary of Hecate Polymorphos in Coventry, United Kingdom. I'm Campaign, the torchbearer of the sanctuary, and I'm here to share a little bit about myself and my relationship with Hecate and the sanctuary. So I first became aware of Hecate around 2005-2006. At this time, my only knowledge base was predominantly self-taught Wicca through books. At the time, most sources described Hecate as the crone within the Wiccan concept of the triple goddess. However, something about this just didn't fit with how I was feeling and experiencing Hecate personally. And so that led to me continuing my search. I read anything and everything I could find about her until I discovered the online communities of Hellenic Reconstructionism. And it was from there I was able to get a true idea of Hecate's origins, her rich history, and most importantly, her perseverance through time and being able to adapt and change and being still worshipped today in the modern world. The early years with Hecate were filled with learning and also personal challenges. I would definitely say she came at a time when I was facing some personal issues and a dark night of the soul. Though these times have undoubtedly been hard, as well as very emotional, Hecate has been the constant throughout, and it all has helped me to get through to the other side. So within the Covenant of Hecate, those who work towards torchbearer status can opt to create a sanctuary. Torchbearers are dedicated priestesses, priests, and devotees who undertake a dedication to shine a light for others seeking knowledge, understanding, and experience of the goddess Hecate now and into the future. As a sanctuary within the Covenant of Hecate, we look to honour and work with Hecate Sotera, the saviour, as described in the Chaldean oracles, but we also accept that there is no true form of Hecate, and that as polymorphos, the many-formed, we can explore her aspects and titles, as well as learning to understand how she chooses to appear to each of us. My desire to form a sanctuary stems directly from my relationship with Hecate. Despite my own personal hang-ups, she has continued to nudge me to serve the wider community. So after becoming a torchbearer, the step to form a sanctuary seemed logical. My main aim was to unite people across the world from different paths, from different walks of life, with Hecate being the unifying principle. It is not for me to dictate how somebody should or should not experience and see Hecate, but rather provide as much accurate and relevant information about her, guiding and shining a torch to allow a person to find their own way on their personal path. I would definitely have to say that learning everything you can is really important, and do not be afraid to ask questions. I often tell people that come to my workshops and contact the sanctuary, the only stupid question is the question that doesn't get asked. Keep an open mind, question everything as you learn, grow and develop. In the age of the internet, you know, there is a wealth of information out there. Literally at our fingertips, there are books being written and released all the time. But unfortunately, that still doesn't mean that it is all relevant or accurate. I would also say don't be scared of Hecate either. Many people are concerned that she's a dark goddess and therefore shouldn't be, approached or messed with. However, by this argument, nobody would have ever started learning or worshipping about her, and she wouldn't have survived through the ages as she has. I've been walking my path with Hecate for about 15 years, and I've only scratched the surface when it comes to both learning and understanding the goddess. New information and experiences being written and released all the time. Even new archaeological finds are being discovered, and the global and online communities continue to grow from strength to strength. So you have places like the Sanctuary of Hecate Polymorphos, you have the Covenant of Hecate, the Temple of Hecate Inc. in New York. There are groups and communities all over the world popping up, which is a great way of learning and sharing in our experiences of the goddess. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak briefly, and as always, hail Hecate.
Hello, my name is Ivana Diaz, and I am the torchbearer and key-bearer for the Covenant of Hecate. I am the head of the Sanctuary of Hecate Propylaea here in Spain, in Tenerife. And our sanctuary is heavily focused on formation of new devotees. We are very focused on helping to learn people about historical Hecate and her cult in ancient Greece. We are also very focused on developing, helping people develop a devotional practice that is daily and sustainable in order to help them just maintaining a true relationship with the goddess Hecate. We some of the activities we do is we do readings of academic materials such as theses, historical theses, academic and literary sources that we then discuss within the sanctuary to help us learn and understand them in a devotional context. Then we also hold the rituals and ceremonies present as like the Deipnon or Hecatesia, and we also do a lot of services for the community in a ritual sense. I also hold a few classes, practical classes, that help people with their devotions, such as creating of incense and how to use them, how to develop an actual sustainable devotion practice that can be done daily, how to structure some practices within our daily practice, our daily rituals. I also hold daily ritual of devotion in the mornings and in nights, and we just try to help people get their hands dirty, like you say, just to get them moving, get the relationship to be a living thing and not just something that you do because you think that having an altar is cool. So this is what we do in the Sanctuary of Hecate Propylaea. If you want to know more, we are at Santuario de Hécate in Instagram, and you can also always contact me through the sanctuary's email is sanctuaryofhecatePropylaea.coh@gmail.com. How I came about to know the goddess Hecate was pretty much about how she does everything. It's pure serendipia. I was invited to a Samhain ritual that a group in Caracas was holding, and I was not acquainted with the goddess at all at that moment. And there was some channeling happening for the goddess that night, and she was to call people to give messages from her. And I was not expected to be called at all because I was not her devotee or anything about anything. And she called me and she gave me a message with some things she said that was not, there was nobody else that could have known the information she gave me. So I was talking, then she did requested me to join her service, which I did. I am her devotee ever since. So what I did at the moment was frantically research everything about her, just books and academic sources and theses and everything I could get my hands on about her. And that's how I came about to know the Covenant of Hecate, which I joined in 2013. I'm not very sure. So I am hers ever since. She has led me to devotions and a lot of relationships to the gods like Isis. She has led me to rejoin my devotion to Isis that I held a long time ago. And I was initiated into the Fellowship of Isis as a priestess of Hecate and Isis last year. So my advice for new devotees and people who wants to join her service and wants to form a relationship with her is, first you need to read everything that you can about her, get to know her. And in second place, when you feel like you're ready, you can just set up a little space and start doing daily devotions to her. Just offering a little candle and prayers and just a few words every day will help incredibly in developing a relationship with her that is truly reciprocal, which is what in the end we want, right? So that is my advice for new people, and just read everything that you can, educate yourself, and get to know her personally. That's the most important thing, and everything will just fall into place. I know that working with her, you will, when you get a chance to really know her, you will notice that she works a lot in serendipias. Everything just falls into place in your mind after things just happen. And it's very, very nice to see how she acts in the devotees' lives. It's very inspiring. So that's all I got. That's my advice.
Hello everybody, my name is Sarita Diesti. I'm a devotee and priestess of the goddess Hecate, the triple goddess of the crossroads. I'm honoured to have been asked to speak to you about my experience of Hecate, and I hope that what I share here today will help you a little bit on your own journey. So for me, my journey with Hecate started many years ago. And if I had to pinpoint it, there would be many different moments that I could say my journey started, because it's very difficult sometimes to define these things. It may have been when I had my first psychic experiences as a child that led me to want to learn more about psychism and subsequently the occult and the mechanisms through which these things came. Maybe it was through my deep love and appreciation for religion as a teenager, seeking out different forms of belief until I finally, accidentally, bumped into initiatory craft. One could say that that accident was something that I was guided towards. However, I also believe very much in free will and decisions. And so there were many things I've done in my life. I've learned, I've studied, I've practiced, I've experimented. And eventually in late 2000, during a scrying session at Halloween or Hallows Eve or Samhain, a group of friends and I decided to do a ceremony. And during that scrying session, we were using black mirrors. I had a vision of Hecate and I decided to act upon it. So with others, I founded a training circle in London that would have Hecate as its principal deity. It was an initiatory craft group, so obviously we moved and we also were invoking and working with the deities of that tradition. But Hecate had a special place within that from the beginning through to the end, and for some of us more so. She was a goddess who touched us in a way that others didn't, and she was transformative, guiding us towards deeper pathways into the mysteries. So as time went by and as I learned more about her, I learned that many of the things that initially I was told before and during the start of my journey with Hecate, the things I was learning about in some pagan books and the very few websites that were available 20 years ago, that Hecate actually wasn't the goddess that she was being described to be. Frequently in neo-pagan books and in witchcraft books, we found that she was described as the crone goddess, the old woman in a trio of women who represented the three phases of womanhood: maiden, mother and crone. And that idea of maiden, mother, crone never really sat comfortably with me. I always felt kind of like, this is a bit strange. I was very young. I was in my 20s. It wasn't like I was arguing against motherhood or maidenhood or cronehood. It just didn't feel comfortable because I had friends who lost their virginity when they were very, very young and their innocence with it. I had friends who had children when they were very young. I also had older friends who couldn't have children, who could never experience the idea of motherhood in the way that they wanted. And I also knew of people that had entered into menopause very young, and so the whole idea seemed really strange. At the same time, I was studying the Homeric hymn to Demeter, because the Homeric hymn to Demeter is such an important text as part of a journey with Hecate, because in that the story is told of the young Persephone, her mother Demeter, and how their relationship and Persephone's kidnapping by the god Hades into the underworld would result in the creation of summer and winter. It's also very symbolic of the cycle of grain and the growth of grain, the storing of grain. So in that story, Hecate plays a pivotal role. She's a really important goddess because she is the one that takes, firstly, Demeter to Helios and helps her make the connections that leads to the return of her daughter. And she also becomes, at the end of the story, the one who precedes and follows Persephone. In this role, Hecate leads Persephone into the realm of Hades yearly and also helps her return. Because Hecate, like the god Hermes, are deities that can move between the different realms. Not all the gods can do that. And perhaps it's this reason that Hecate and Hermes are very much gods that can be seen as psychopomps, deities that lead those to be initiated deeper into the mysteries, takes them to where they need to be. And for me, this has been a guiding principle with my work with Hecate. When I need guidance, when I need to know where I need to go with my magical work, with my spiritual work, with my mundane work, with my mundane life, I tend to ask her to shine light on the situation, to show me where I need to go. It's taken me down many strange and wonderful adventures in my life. And perhaps if you try to apply the same principles, it will take you down some interesting roles as well. So for me, Hecate would shine light on the actual history and origins of the maiden mother crone idea. And the more I looked, the more I was shocked to find that this was a relatively modern invention, was something that found itself coming to the forefront in the 1950s through the fictional work of Robert Graves. Beautiful work, very interesting, but it was a very simplified idea of a woman's life, and he applied goddesses to it as archetypes. But of course, historically, these goddesses had long histories of worship, recorded histories of worship in which this idea of maiden mother crones simply did not exist. And often when Hecate is paired with Demeter as the mother and Persephone as the maid, that also doesn't make sense, because at no point is Hecate referred to as an old woman in that story, but Demeter is. She takes on the guise of an old woman during a period in that story where she goes on a journey seeking out her daughter, mourning the loss of her daughter. She takes on the form of an old woman. But it's important to note that she takes that on. She does not become an old woman. Persephone, of course, becomes a queen. She becomes a wife. She takes on a completely different role from the Kore, the virgin, the maid and goddess that she was right at the beginning. And Hecate, well, she's referred to as the bright-coiffed maiden of the mysteries. She's referred to specifically by those titles. So Hecate is a maiden goddess, not a crone. And just that little realization that I received very early on in my journey, my formal journey with Hecate, created a situation where I wanted to learn more and more about this goddess who was so misrepresented within the pagan movement. I started looking at historical representations of Hecate, and I found that every single one of those representations showed her as a mature or younger woman. At no point did the goddess show signs of aging. Now, let me be straight. I'm not against aging. I'm a woman who is beyond a certain age. I'm definitely not a maiden anymore. I am a mother of a teenager, and soon I will probably be going into my so-called cronehood. I will probably enter the menopause in years to come. Soon, very soon. Because I'm of that age, even though I like to think that I'm still in my 20s, that's simply not the case. I'm not against aging, and wisdom can come with old age, of course, for us humans. It should, at least. But I'm sure that if you think about it, you can think of many older people that are definitely not wise. And you can think of older people that are very, very wise. Likewise, you can probably think of some young people that are just wise beyond their years. For us humans, there are no standard way of understanding this, and to simplify the ages of a man or a woman into 3 simple phases is to ignore the fullness of our lives. But with the gods, it's a different matter. The ways in which the gods are depicted, the symbols they carry, the way they stand, the postures they may assume, the symbols that they hold, the stories that are told about them, the clothing they wear, is all highly symbolic. It's part of a complex language of correspondences that I like to refer to as the language of the gods, the language of magic, if you like. And it's through understanding that language, the symbols that the goddess has, the way she stands, the clothing she wears, the headdresses that she's shown with on her head, that we can deepen our understanding of her, that we can deepen our relationship with her, and that we too can enter deeper into the mysteries. So for me, Hecate is a goddess who has opened many doors. She is, of course, the goddess of doorways, a goddess of thresholds, a goddess of roads, of travellers on roads and crossroads. And she has that ability to traverse different worlds. So she is a goddess that's very appropriate to open doorways, to remove obstacles and to show the way. And I hope that wherever you are in your journey with Hecate, that my words today can help you maybe a little bit, maybe bring you to a greater insight or a desire to learn more about her and her symbols, to learn more about her stories and gain insights like that, to go to reliable information as your first place of contact. Because if we start with unreliable information, it adds to a layer of confusion that veils the mysteries from us. By moving through that veil, by coming back to the realities of things, we can go much deeper with our practice and with our magic, with our devotion, and with our journey through this life. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that this has been interesting, and I will hopefully see all of you again when I'm next in Brazil. So for now, bye!
Chegamos ao fim dessa nossa série Hecate, um caminho de magia, onde a gente percorreu várias sendas de mistérios com relação à deusa, e esse final está sendo um final muito emocionante para mim, porque esse último vídeo foi um vídeo muito desafiador e foi um vídeo também que exigiu muito trabalho, então eu tenho que agradecer a algumas pessoas. Primeiro, agradecer ao público que busca pela deusa. Espero que vocês tenham encontrado um pedacinho ou um pouquinho dos mistérios que vocês tanto almejam, e que essa deusa possa ter tocado o coração de vocês, assim como ela toca o coração de muitos pelo mundo. Quero agradecer a Francine Derschner, que se tornou minha amiga ao longo do processo, e sem ela nada disso teria acontecido como aconteceu, além de contribuir em diversos outros episódios dessa série com informações tão ricas. Esse último vídeo, sem ela, não teria acontecido. Ela trouxe não só muitos dos contatos que vocês estão vendo aqui de pessoas ao longo do mundo, como ela também me ajudou fazendo a tradução do inglês para que vocês pudessem compreender melhor, porque o meu inglês não é tão bom assim. Então, Francine, muito obrigado. Você definitivamente conseguiu ultrapassar o amor da deusa que está no seu peito para fora de uma maneira que muitas outras pessoas conseguissem sentir e serem tocadas por essa deusa. Muito obrigado. Você realmente está conseguindo colocar a palavra dessa deusa no mundo. Também quero agradecer a Márcia, minha amiga, também escritora do livro Bruxaria Hecatina, que também participou de alguns dos episódios e também me ajudou com alguns contatos com relação a esse vídeo. Me ajudou muito com relação também à organização histórica dos vídeos e principalmente participou do episódio onde a gente fala sobre oráculos e trouxe pra gente a criação dela, o oráculo de Hecate, com tanto carinho para encher ainda mais os corações de vocês com novas técnicas e maneiras de se trabalhar com a deusa. Quero agradecer a todos os convidados e pessoas que disponibilizaram um pouquinho de tempo para fazer os vídeos e contar um pouco dos projetos e das histórias aqui para o pessoal do Brasil. E principalmente agradecer a senhorita Desta, que é uma pessoa extremamente ocupada, por ter também separado um pouquinho do tempo dela para falar sobre Hecate e por também estar trazendo esse trabalho que ela faz tão lindamente ao longo do tempo. Muito obrigado, senhorita, por manter a tocha sempre acesa. Esse é o nosso último vídeo da série. Quem sabe a gente acabe não desenvolvendo alguma coisa daqui para frente, mas por enquanto... Para você que chegou agora, assista os vídeos anteriores, e para você que acompanhou a gente até aqui, que a deusa possa cada dia mais iluminar o seu coração e que a tocha continue sempre acesa. Muito obrigado pelo carinho, muito obrigado pela audiência, um beijo e que o sol possa iluminar o seu caminho. Tchau!